Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a big show, a real big shoe.
Live from the basement of the YouTube headquarters, it's the Stacking Benjamin Show. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and what do you do when the people around you, friends, relatives, or even your spouse, aren't on the same page about your goals? We'll ponder that topic and drive toward solutions with a guy behind the Mile High Five podcast and the guy with the world's best first name, Doug Cunnington. And joining him from the place where you can afford some goals, but not all of the goals, it's Paula Pant. And a guy who's all about laying out a map toward your goals, and even if you don't want them, you're getting in this car right now, mister. It's OG. That's not all. Halfway through this fascinating discussion, we'll take a quick timeout to test our panel's genius with my scintillating trivia question. And now a guy who's happy it's Friday because that means college football is right around the corner. It's Joe Saul-Sehy.
Thank you, Doug. And yes, we got a big college football weekend. We got the interstate rivalry. So let's say hi to the guy on the other side of this matchup because he went to that awful university in Ann Arbor. Mr. OG's here with me. How are you, dude? Formerly my brother, OG.
Just
now
living the dream, man.
Nemesis.
One day at a time.
It's going to be a big game this weekend.
I don't think so. I think it's going to be, you probably don't even want to watch it.
You think we got you? You think Michigan State's got you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You can believe whatever you want to believe.
And the woman in New York City, and she's like, football? I bet she's going to be glued to the TV all weekend because she loves current entertainment events. Paula Pant's here.
Oh, I mean, hell, Spartans versus Wolverines? How do I miss that?
She got both the what? Wow.
The green and white versus the blue and maize.
Yes.
And maize.
Real people, Paula, call it yellow, but
right.
The foo-foo people in Ann Arbor call it maize because we got to be different. Yeah. How are you, Paula?
I'm good. In fact, just this morning, somebody asked me, they're like, does New York have a football team? And I had to Google it. And apparently we do. It's called the Giants.
Apparently you have 2. You have another one.
We do?
You do.
Oh, Google didn't tell me that.
Yes, they're called the Jets. You also have the Jets.
Huh.
Yes.
I thought the Jets were the nemesis of the Sharks.
That too. Well, you pulled a cultural reference out.
I know, right?
That is.
Look at this.
What the hell's going on here, OG?
I don't know. It's like the Twilight Zone.
Well, the Twilight Zone is that we haven't had this guy on earlier. I'm super happy he's here with us. We've had his partner in crime over at the Mile High Five podcast, Carl Jensen, but the brains behind the operation, everybody knows, is Doug Cunnington. How are you, man?
I'm doing awesome. Glad to be here, and I'm happy to chat with all y'all.
So you live in Longmont, right?
Yep, right in Longmont.
Are you then a Colorado Buffalo fan, or are you a college football fan?
No, I'm not a sports fan overall, so kind of line up with Paula. I was like, how does she know the mascots? And I went to Georgia Tech, so there are some teams.
The Ramblin' Wreck?
Yeah, they're typically not that great. And then, I don't follow anything.
They beat Florida State this year in the first game of the year.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
In London.
Great to hear. Yeah.
Like, good to know. Go team.
Well, let's talk about something more fun. And when we talk about fun, the Mile High Five podcast, you guys have a ton of fun. For the 4 people that don't know what you do, Doug, let's say hi to the Stackers. Tell everybody about Mile High Five.
You mentioned Carl Jensen. So he's the blogger behind 1500 Days. He and I teamed up, and it's kind of like a post-fi or like more advanced financial independence, retire early podcast. So we usually end up talking about more advanced topics and kind of skip over some of the early stuff, which have been covered many times by other people, and people did a better job. So we end up talking about like lifestyle and happiness and fitness. We interview people every now and then kind of breaking news. Carl recently left the show.
I know. I was about to ask you that
he
because
broke up with me.
I saw the thing like a week ago as we record this, but I was going to ask you. So that's real news.
It's real news. So I think he'll record with me occasionally, but he needed to catch up with some other projects going on in his life. But luckily, it's so fun that I'm going to keep going, and I will ask friends to pop in. So I think at least a few of you know Kristen Knapp, who has been at a few campfires. So she sat in with me a couple days ago, and she'll record some with me. And then I'm in Longmont, so Pete Aidney, Mr. Money Mustache, is going to sit in with me at least once. Maybe I can convince him to sit with me a couple other times. But yeah, there's plenty of people passing through, interesting folks.
Amberly Grant has been on your show?
Yeah, she actually has co-hosted like a dozen times or something when Carl had PTO and he was out of the office. So yeah, I'm going to keep on going and see where it leads.
Wait a minute, PTO and podcasting. What does that stand for in podcasting? Because just the first letter of PTO, we don't understand in podcasting. Is the first letter paid?
Yeah, well, he got his normal salary, which is, he had to pay me, I think. So.
I think that's the way it works in podcasting. We're super happy you're here. And actually, what's cool is that Doug brought this topic with him because this is an intensely personal topic. We're going to be talking about relationships. And what if you're not on the same page with your family? We just had house guests this weekend. And the gentleman that was here, I've talked to them about that, so I won't talk about who was here. But he said, they talk about the idea of early retirement, and his parents are like, what are you talking about? Why wouldn't you go to work? You're in your mid 40s. You should be at work today. Like, what's up with that? So whether it's parents, siblings, significant other, which is the case for Doug, how does that work when you might not be on the same page? We're going to jump into that. But before that, we've got a couple of sponsors that make this free for everyone. But even before that, what's even better, Doug?
What?
He's like, I don't know. He's like,
what is better?
Where are we going? Even better is that our Friday roundtables are always brought to you by State Farm. Doesn't that make it all better?
So much.
Yes. If you're in the business he says that like he means it so much. It's amazing. In the market for small business insurance, State Farm knows your business is your life. State Farm agents are small business owners too. So they know what it takes. They can help you create a personalized insurance plan that fits your small business needs and your budget. Small business insurance from State Farm. Everybody ready? Like a good neighbor. Come on. State Farm is there. Talk to your local agent today. We still have not gotten the call, Paula, that we're fired. I'm just waiting any day. State Farm's like, please quit trying to sing the thing. Dell PCs with Intel Inside are built for the moments you plan and the ones you don't. They're for those all-night study sessions, the moment you're working from a cafe and realize every outlet's taken, the times you're deep in your flow and can't be interrupted by an auto update. That's why Dell builds tech that adapts to you. Built with long-lasting batteries so you're not scrambling for an outlet, and built-in intelligence that makes updates around your schedule, not in the middle of it. Find technology built for the way you work at Dell.com/Dell PCs. Built for you. In business, there is no room for guesswork. Every shipment matters. Every deadline counts. And when you're trying to keep operations running smoothly, the last thing you need is uncertainty. That's why reliability is at the core of USPS Ground Advantage. From the moment your package is first scanned in, it moves through a secure nationwide network, aiding in a timely and accurate delivery. You get near real-time tracking so you can keep up with your shipments. And with affordable upfront pricing, there are no hidden fees or surprise surcharges to throw off your cost sheets. It all adds up to predictable deliveries you can depend on, because knowing your logistics are handled lets you focus on everything else, your customers, your team, and the future you're building. Visit USPS.com/Ground Advantage to start shipping with confidence. USPS Ground Advantage. We mean business. All right. We got Doug Cunnington join us. We got Paula Pant here. We got OG. Let's rock and roll. All right, normally at this juncture, I'd say today's inspiration was this blog post I was reading from XYZ, or a piece from the Wall Street Journal, or some academic paper, or whatever it might be. But today, it is courtesy of an email exchange I had with the Doug Cunnington. Doug, let's start here, and we'll take a couple seconds and introduce this together. When did you personally get on the FIRE early retirement train?
It happened in stages, but the first little piece was about 10 years ago, 2014. We were trying to figure out how to invest a little bit better. We fired our advisors that we had, insurance agents and not great advisors.
Yeah,
and
salespeople more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we found Mr. Money Mustache's blog just on the index fund area and how to invest, and then didn't pay much attention. And then stage two, when Pete was on the Tim Ferriss podcast,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, wow, people can retire early. Here's a good example of it. That's when I was a little bit more enthusiastic. And then just a couple years later after that, we ended up moving to Longmont, where, we ended up meeting Pete and a couple other people. So then once it was part of our community and it was our friends, then it really accelerated my interest in just like, hey, we actually can retire early.
That's fabulous. And you did it.
Yeah. So technically I still work in that I podcast, and I was laid off from my corporate job in 2015 and have been doing my own stuff since then. So I don't work that much. So I really don't need to retire, and I get to do fun stuff like chat with you guys. My wife did have a corporate job, which obviously some great benefits for that, including like healthcare, one of the main things. But yeah, she actually retired about 6 months ago. So everything worked out. So we could jump ahead. Like everything worked out. She did retire.
Yeah.
And I have a good small amount of work that keeps me a little bit busy, but not too much.
How old were you when she retired?
45.
Okay. The funny thing here, and this is what you wrote to me, she wasn't really on board though, Doug, before this, with this idea of early retirement. When you're reading the Mr. Money Mustache stuff and you're thinking about maybe going early, tell me about this disagreement.
Yeah, there's so many pieces of it. I think the biggest piece was kind of what you said before. Like, if she could work, she thought she probably should be working. And that came down from her parents, where her dad worked a full career, didn't really retire early. My dad, actually, he was a firefighter. He retired when he was like 50. So I kind of had a different background in that way. But further, a lot of the assumptions that we make in the FIRE community, we could look at the data and we can feel pretty confident about it, but she's ultra conservative with these projections. So she would look at each little piece, 4% rule, maybe assumptions about the cost of healthcare or long-term care or any number of things that could go wrong. There's some probability of it, and would make really a lot more conservative assumptions. So we ended up like really butting heads about the details, even though, at the end of the day, I was like, I want you to quit your job and retire early because you don't like your job. It kind of makes you unhappy.
That's funny. So according to her projection, she was going to retire at about 87, you're saying?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I want to ask our other panel about the people around them. OG for you and Mrs. OG, you guys always been on the same page with what the plan is?
I was thinking about this as Doug was talking, and I was thinking, the similarities are very interesting, but ours was more of because Lissa stopped working after Caroline was born. So we had two kids who were 9 and 7. Caroline was born. She had maternity leave, went back and worked for a few months to kind of finish out the year. And I think she kind of knew at that time that it was like, okay, I'm going to be done. And we had talked about it, but it was a pretty substantial money decision. I very honestly say that Lissa was the sugar mama of the relationship, and we relied a lot on her income. And my business wasn't the same as it is now. Then, it's been now almost 8 years, so it's a little different. But there was a lot of discussion around, are you sure that this is what you want to do? Because this is going to require a pretty gigantic step backward. And we weren't in the spot to I guess everything's on the table. You could have. We chose to fund it with lower savings rates and maybe just a smidge more debt to kind of keep the lifestyle the same. We could have said, all right, to do this, we need to sell the house and move across country. We could have done some extreme stuff, but we didn't want to do that. So we knew going into it that this was going to be a pretty big step backward, but it still was pretty stressful. It was not a joyous meeting, a conversation. It went over periods of time. It wasn't like one day we just decided. But I remember thinking this is going to be very, very, very stressful. And it really was for quite a while to lose all of her income. And then, the benefits and all that other stuff that goes with the corporate job. Like Doug was saying with your bride, it's not just, I was making $100,000. It's you're making $100,000 plus you're putting money in the 401k, plus your insurance was less expensive, plus you had a company car, plus, it's these, other resources, this network of people, there's all these other ancillary benefits. And now we're going to cut that off. And oh, by the way, mortgage is due on the 1st, regardless. So I don't want to say that we weren't on the same page, but I had some pretty strong reservations, that's for sure.
Yeah, but it was rocky. I feel like in a lot of ways you were in some ways on the page that Doug's spouse was on.
Yeah, that's what I said. We were kind of like the opposite people.
Flipped.
Only we didn't do the prep in advance. Lissa wasn't Doug, who was like, hey, for 10 years, I've been saving really aggressively. And I think we could do, we're just like, I'm going to get a minivan tomorrow. And then I'm going to be a soccer mom. It was a little bit more thought out than that. I be clear.
Paula, to get some of your story, I want to ask you about two different relationships. The first one is with your parents. I'm just imagining this. You're working as a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
So according to people much older than us, you've got the full-time job. It's a newspaper, which I think to older people seems more secure than it does if you're 23 today.
Right. Yeah.
You're 23 years old. I don't think you think newspaper and you think solid, but if you're 75, you still might.
If anybody who's listening to this is currently 23 today, so a newspaper is.
Right.
It's this piece of paper and you open it and there's a fold.
Yes. It's actually this weird thing called fact-checked journalism, which is weird. I know that doesn't happen anymore. But what did your parents say when you decided that was going to go bye-bye and you were going to become an entrepreneur? Were they on board with that, or was there any friction there?
There was a ton of friction there. They were not on board at all. They were very dogmatic. They were very, very disappointed that I decided not to go to grad school, to the point where my dad told me that he regretted giving me any type of support for my undergrad.
Wow.
He told me that he regretted helping me pay for tuition for my undergrad years. And said, look at all of your cousins. None of them had any financial help from any of their parents. You're the only person in the family who had any kind of help for undergrad. And I said, well, that's because none of my uncles and aunts could. That was due to necessity. You guys were the only people in the entire, of all of our uncles and aunts and cousins, you were the only ones who could.
Oh, who had means, you mean?
Who had the means to. Yeah. But my dad was like, well, look at your cousin Permish. He painted houses from sunrise to sunset, working his way through undergrad. And I was like, well, Dad, I hear what you're saying, but I was an honor student. I was Dean's List. I graduated magna cum laude from the honors program in 7 semesters instead of 8, with a major and a minor, right? I was a top student. So I hear what you're saying, but I didn't squander. I worked 20 hours a week.
Yeah, you did your part.
Yeah, I worked 20 hours a week. My dad paid for tuition and I paid for my cost of living from my 20-hour-a-week job plus summers. Because I only worked 20 hours a week instead of working 40, that gave me the ability to study and to get good grades and to graduate magna cum laude. And I remember my dad said, and I'll never forget this, he said, well, what's the point if you're not going to get a master's?
Wow.
What was the point of graduating with honors if you're not going to get a master's?
He's a ninja at parental guilt.
Yeah. So we had that conversation in March of 2009. That following year, I applied to there's a particular graduate program at Columbia that was fully paid for. It was a fellowship, full tuition, full fees, because I knew I was like, all right, I'm going to have to send myself to grad school. I'm not going to take a penny from my parents. And so I found this program called the Knight Bagehot Fellowship at Columbia University. And I was like, that's the one I'm going to do. So I applied for it in 2010. I got rejected. And I took a look at the bios of some of the people who were accepted. And I realized they were a lot further ahead in the game than me. And so I sort of filed it away on the back burner. And then exactly 10 years later in 2020, I applied again. My second time applying, I got waitlisted. And then in 2021, I applied for a third time and I got accepted. Then I started the year in 2022, graduated in 2023. And so it was from 2009 to 2023. I really played the long game there. But I followed through and I got the master's that my dad wanted me to get.
Yeah, and that whole story is great, but tell me how important was that one referral letter from that influencer friend of yours? Because I think that was probably the linchpin to the whole thing.
That might have been, in 2010, Joe, the first time I applied, when I got rejected, I didn't have it. Fast forward to 2021, I have a letter of recommendation from Joe Saul Seahigh.
Who knows a lot about master's programs at Columbia. I can't even spell Columbia. I'm like, how do you get that done?
So you were, nobody's too sure which one.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
It's random. You choose one, you run with it. Yeah, right. It's either a country or university, depending.
One of the two.
Yeah.
Or district.
Mistakenly, Paula ends up going to the country.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
I'm like, what?
Bienvenidos, Bogota. You're like, dang it, Joe. Wrong Columbia.
But check it out, Dad. I'm a world traveler.
Yeah.
Doug, I want to ask you about bridging this gap, and I'm wondering if this difference, so you want to do this thing that's fairly aggressive. She wants to be very conservative. Did this spill over tactically into your financial decisions? And I'll give you an example. I'll give you my personal example. Like Cheryl and I are very different people financially. So she is incredibly frugal, will not spend money, except for she will drop $1 bajillion on a super expensive thing. Bam. Right. So she'll make a decision on something that is very expensive in one fell swoop. I'm the opposite. I'm death by 1,000 paper cuts. I will I'll make 5,000 of the dumbest, small, little, tiny transactions. So we'll get to the same place. But because of that, we found the middle ground for us was 2 checkbooks, because Joe's always just picking and doing stuff. And then I had to learn the hard way myself how to control my own checkbook. So how did this difference, if she wants to be conservative, you want to be aggressive, how did that manifest itself about how you guys manage money?
Funny enough, we ended up kind of at the same net worth, even though we managed stuff separately. So we could start at that sort of foundational spot. So we got married when we were about 30. We each had like a house already and our retirement savings and a couple other pieces in place. So we've just kept things separate. But for the home mortgage and our like grocery and normal expenses, we'll sort of split that. So we divided that up, and it shifted over time depending on who had what job and where we moved and the cash flow and all that kind of stuff. But roughly it worked out the same. That said, I think she might be upstairs, so she could be listening. She doesn't know we're recording this.
That sounds great.
She has like
Did you hide it from her? You're hiding it from her until it's live?
Yeah, she won't listen to the show. So I think we're totally okay. So she does have a credit card that she'll put like whatever extra stuff that she wants, and she has been. Although now that she's retired, like that's not as important to have like the little extra piece, because we have our expenses outlined, but overall, we kind of approach it similar to what you mentioned. So she'll do a really good job on sort of actually, she does a good job all around. She's roughly frugal, but she'll spend for certain things like a vacation. So very value based. So if we get a lot out of it, she's happy to spend it. And I'm more like, I'll buy, like there's a guitar behind me for people that can't see. I'll buy a guitar that's kind of expensive and just make a quick decision. But most of the time I'm fairly frugal on little stuff. So I'm all over the place. I'm scattered. I'm pretty scattered with it. I'm not even sure if I answered your original question.
I think you did.
Okay.
But I find that really interesting, like bridging these gaps. And you said, OG, that it took you and Lissa a while to have this discussion. Hey, I'm stopping. I'm not gonna work. You guys are not on the same page. Like, how did that manifest itself tactically between the two of you?
Well, the decision came by pretty quickly. I mean, our daughter was born in May, so she was off until, I don't know, September maybe or something. And then her last week of work was around Christmas. So in that fall period was, here we go. This is what's happening. And maybe we had talked about it. I can't remember. It's been a while now, but maybe we had talked about it while she was on maternity leave or maybe when she was pregnant. But the turnaround happened very quickly. I think different from you two, we have always operated stuff together. We started dating when she was 17. We got married 6 weeks after she graduated college. We've always not had any money, so it was easy. You know, it was easy to keep track of how much money we didn't have. When there's only one source of income, and to be clear, she's done some consulting work on the side from time to time. But when there's like one primary source of income, we all have to be singing off the same song sheet. And even to this day, we were having a conversation this summer. I had sat down, I was doing some budgeting and just kind of some cash flow planning for the business. And, you know, that spills over from, you know, yours and my discussion, Joe, into our personal life and for our planning firm and into our personal life. There's a lot of interconnected stuff there, obviously. I remember we're talking and I said, how much money do you think we spend on average per month across the board? Because most people, when you ask them that question, they think of what their Amex bill is. They go, oh, like 6,000. Oh, it's like 5,200. No. I'm talking about across, because you got house insurance that's due once a year. Taxes are due once a year. I'm talking the whole enchilada package. When I saw it, my breath was taken away. I was curious if she had any sense of that, because we don't have a lot of conversation around that right now. A lot of other stuff going on. And she's like, I don't know. I think it's this. And I was like, yeah, no, it's like twice that. It was like, holy crap. It was like the first time in a while that we went, all right, maybe it's time to tighten a little, like just a smidge, you know? And It's just interesting to me how life just kind of happens how it happens. And then you wake up a little while later and it's, you know, the margins have gotten wider. You know what I mean? Like you just kind of live your life and, you know, DoorDash is 4 days a week instead of one, or you stop caring which grocery store has the least expensive eggs and milk. So you just get, you know what I mean? There's opportunities to save in there, but then you give yourself permission because you're like, we've got money. Like, do I really care? But all those little, to your point, all those little death by 1,000 paper cuts, that stuff kind of adds up. And all of a sudden you're going, wait a second, this is a big number, man. We should probably get on the same page again. So we've gone through cycles of this over the years.
Well, to your point, Cheryl and I mean, 2 points. Number one, I think two really good incomes, it makes it easy to be pretty lazy about it because you always know there's more cash flow coming in. So if we're not being careful with our money, who cares? There's another bundle of cash that's going to be on our doorstep
Friday
in a few days.
Yeah.
So I think, and you'll see that more the higher the paychecks are. But the second thing is that where Cheryl and I started to bridge this gap, which we'll start talking about here in a minute, was tracking our expenses really helped us bridge our gap. Like watching just on what's the heartbeat of because we weren't, to your point, we weren't tracking our expenses either. And we started coming together by talking about what we're going to spend money on next week. You know, what are we going to do that's important for our family? And then the bigger discussion of how are we going to spend money next week? Why are we spending that money next week? And what does that mean for our family? You know, Stephen Covey has that whole book about family mission statement. What is our family's mission? What do we want? I mean, what's going on there? Speaking of, what do we want, Paula? I said 2 relationships. The second one is you've been open about being on the dating scene, right? And you and I have had discussions about some hilarious dates. Hilarious for me because I'm not in them.
Yeah.
But oh my God, some of the walking wounded that you end up dating is just, oh my goodness. You should do a blog about that, by the way.
No. Absolutely not.
Holy cow. But how important is this financially that we be on the same page when you're first dating people? Is it important, or are you saving that for later, thinking about that later?
You know, it's funny because at this age, every first date feels a little bit like a job interview. I assume it's probably different when you're younger, but at this age, every date is like, and this isn't just coming from me. It's like, I notice this even when I don't initiate this, coming from the other person too. It's a freaking job interview. It's like, what's your career? What are your ambitions? What, people don't directly ask like, are you a spender or a saver? But you kind of get to that. You get a sense of somebody's attitude about not about money per se, but about work, about family, about do you want kids? I mean, that is like common first date conversation. I've been on first dates where I've been like, all right, well, like where the guy has brought up like, do you want children? And that
on
has
date
led to
one.
Oh yeah, constantly.
Hey, would you care for an appetizer? What do you think about kids?
Yeah. I mean, it's just
Wow.
normal. It's just really, really normal because I think there's a sense at this age, there's a sense of don't waste my time.
Right.
Like, just don't freaking waste my time. If we're not on the same page, I'm busy. I do not have time to waste. I'm busy and we're old and we don't have time to waste.
So you appreciate it then?
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. So, I mean, I remember this one first date where he asked, do you want kids? And I was like, yes. And then we talked about how many. And then we actually got into a discussion about raising the kids, and I brought up, I was like, all right, what would you think about when the kids are very young, going to Nepal for a couple of years so that they could be immersed in Nepalese culture and they could learn the language? And I mean, that was first date.
Date one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which I think is hard. I mean, a piece of me thinks that's awesome. The other piece thinks it's a huge mistake because Cheryl and I have these conversations, but there's so much bedrock foundation below that, where if we disagree on 2 years in Nepal,
yeah,
I'm not done. You know what I mean? Like
right.
I'll stay in the ring with you because we've got lots of history, but on date one, that's tough.
Yeah. Well, I think what I was screening for with that question is a minimum of an openness to the idea. Like he doesn't have to agree to move to Kathmandu on the first date. But
and by the way, if he does, he might not be who you're looking for anyway. I'm free to go right now.
Yeah. But I'm screening for an openness to the idea. Frankly, because if he doesn't have that, this isn't going to work out. And I want to know that on the first date.
Paula, do you have a good question to find out if someone is on the same page as you? Because it's hard to sort through. You don't want to ask directly because it could seem a little crazy, right? But like, what question or a couple questions do you ask to figure out if someone is on the right track financially?
It's a pretty direct conversation. So I mean, I'll literally just ask like, what are your dating goals? Are you looking for something serious? Are you looking to eventually get married? Are you looking to have kids? It's absolutely just direct.
Paula's like, on a scale of 350 to 850, what would you say your credit score is?
Yeah.
If you had to guess.
500? Oh, look at the time.
Oh, busy.
I got to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And then she's going out the back door.
So the other thing I should add is, again, at this age, a lot of the guys that I date or that I've gone on first dates with have children. A lot of them are divorced. They have kids. And so that's another reason that it comes up is because like my last boyfriend had 2 daughters. At the time that we were together, they were 5 and 10. And so we had a lot of conversations about, all right, when do I get introduced to the daughters and how do we incorporate his daughters into our budding relationship? So that's another piece of it as well, is like a lot of the guys that I date, they're dads, And so we have to figure that out.
Yeah, and that makes talking about priorities even more important.
Yeah.
We're going to get into, there are some, many therapists and consulting journals that I looked at. Doug, you brought this great topic my way, and I want to run by you guys in the second half of this discussion, what they say, and really how you bridge these gaps, either OG with clients or in your own lives, or the way you think you should have done it that maybe you didn't. By the way, before we get to our trivia question, which is our next segment, if you're interested in kind of a funny look at how not to evaluate people, there's a wonderful book. One of my favorite pieces of fiction is a book called The Rosie Project. And it's a guy named Graham Simsian. Graham has won a ton of awards for this book. I heard about it through Bill Gates. Bill Gates every year puts out his list of his favorite books. And this book was recommended by his ex-wife, and both his daughters read it. And he said, my whole family's reading it and they're laughing about it. But this guy is kind of on the spectrum. And he goes, Paula, to first dates with a checklist. And he has them fill out a checklist because he doesn't want to waste their time. And, he's just very straightforward. No emotion. Let's just take the emotion out of it. And the awkward stuff he asks these women is just the cringiest crap. It's so good. And it's one of the few books of fiction where I remember I was going to a meeting in Boston and the plane is landing and I can't stop crying as I'm reading the end of this book. It was incredible. So the Rosie Project, we'll link to it in the show notes. But at the halfway point of every show, we take a pause because we have this year-long competition going on between our three frequent contributors, OG, Paula, and my mom. And Doug, you're playing on behalf of mom because she doesn't do stairs. She doesn't really care about trivia. And playing on behalf of mom has some perks and also some problems. So do you want the good news or the bad news?
Let's do the bad news first.
Well, the bad news is you're not winning. OG is winning. So OG has 15 as we are midway through October now. You have 11. So I guess the good news is, hey, you're ahead of Paula because Paula is in the spot she finds herself pretty much every year at this time at 9. But Paula caught up by 1 last week. So Paula may be on a roll. I don't know. But Doug, if you're going to help mom get moving, we gotta get started here pretty soon. If OG wins, then you're both in trouble. So that's where we're at. And because of the score, OG will guess first. Doug, on behalf of mom, you'll go second. And Paula gets the benefit of going last. So for that, Doug, we need a trivia question. So what have we got, man?
Hey there, Stackers. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and today is a cornucopia of offbeat holidays. Listen to this. It's Boston Cream Donut Day. Wait, that's every day, am I right? It's also National Horror Movie Day. What? Mom, what? I'm recording here. Oh, right. She says, be sure to pronounce that last OR in horror correctly, or Joe's mom's going to think you're talking about a way different kind of movie. Anyway, it's also National Canning Day and National Slap Your Annoying Coworker Day. I think those last two kind of go together. I mean, slap your annoying coworker hard enough and you'll get canned. With all of those viable topics, which do we choose? Of course, we're going to go with donuts. What? We talked about donuts a couple of weeks ago? Oh, there's always room for more donuts. I mean, isn't there? No? Okay, let's pivot slightly to donuts' pairing partner, coffee. While Dunkin' Donuts is known for munchkins and, believe it or not, donuts, they make far more money on their coffee. According to the famous retail chain, how many cups of coffee does Dunkin' sell every 60 seconds? I'll be back with the answer right after I zone out and dream about an apple fritter. Apple fritter.
All right, while Doug is going off into dreamland, let's see what you guys think. OG, Dunkin' Donuts, chain-wide, every 60 seconds.
I need some coffee right now. Okay. It'd be nice to know how many Dunkin' Donuts there were. Is this internationally? This is everybody included? This is
entire chain.
Chain-wide?
The entire chain. All the franchises.
I'm going to say, I feel like there's probably some in the neighborhood of 25,000 Dunkin' Donuts is. I feel like there's like 50,000 Subways or 70,000. Like Subway's the biggest, and I think they have like 50 or 70,000. So say 20,000 Dunkin' Donuts and 60 seconds. You sell a cup
60 seconds.
Cup a day is 20,000 cups a day. Say they sell 10 cups times 20,000. Oh my gosh, this is going to be a gigantic number. Oh, per 60 seconds, you said, per minute.
Yes, in 1 minute.
Okay.
How much coffee do they
Am I
sell?
allowed to use a calculator, or do I have to do this all on my brain?
Yeah, no, you can use a calculator.
Okay, so is this like per day? I have to figure out how many per hour. I don't know, per minute. My God, I don't know. Who gives a shit? 13,800.
13,800. What are you going to do with that, Doug? You think that's high or low?
Oh, wow. I think that's a little high. I'm going to say, what'd you say, OG? 13,000?
13,800.
13,800. Yeah.
13,800. I'm going to say 2,600.
It's way lower. 2,600. Paula, you've got a big field goal there between 2,600 and 13,800. What are you thinking?
Okay. So follow-up question. So I don't think I understand what you mean by a minute. So does that mean, because obviously there are the minutes in which they are open and the minutes in which they are closed and the minutes in which they are busier than other minutes. Are we talking peak minute or are we talking average?
Minute.
In an average minute, including if you averaged it out to the hours that they were closed. So functionally, it's how many do they sell in a day divided by a number of minutes per day.
I think it's divided by the hours they're open. Myself. Okay. I don't know. The answer is I don't know. But I would imagine based on all the other stats from the Dunkin' Donuts site, because this data comes right from them, I think it's hours they're open based on the other trivia we could have asked you.
Okay. Let me just think through this out loud. We'll start with the assumption there are 25,000 locations, each of which are open for, I'm going to use a calculator.
Okay.
All right. 25,000 locations times, maybe they're open 12 hours per day. So that would be 300,000 total hours. And let's say in a given hour, they sell.
I'm with OG.
Each one. In a given hour, each one sells 40 cups of coffee. So 300,000 times 40 is 12 million divided by 60 is 200,000. That's Oshi. What was your guess? It was 13,800.
13,800.
Okay, yeah. I'll go with 13,801. I'll take the upside.
You went from 200,000 to one more.
But your real answer is 200,000.
Sure, why not?
All right, she's locked in at 13,801. OG's at 13,800. Doug, way down there at 2,600. Let's use right in a minute. We'll be right back.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
You didn't start a business just to keep the lights on. You're here to sell more today than yesterday. You're here to win. Lucky for you, Shopify built the best converting checkout on the planet. Like the just one tapping, ridiculously fast acting, sky-high sales stacking, champion of checkouts. That's the good stuff right there. So if your business is in it to win it, win with Shopify. Start your free trial today at shopify.com/win.
Did you know Fast Growing Trees is America's largest and most trusted online nursery with thousands of trees and plants and over 2 million happy customers? Whether you're planting fruit trees, adding privacy, brightening things up with flowers, or bringing in houseplants, Fast Growing Trees has it all. Even better, they can help you find options that are right for your climate, your space, and lifestyle. Click Order Grow. Every plant arrives healthy with the Alive and Thrive guarantee straight to your door. So if you're ready to get planting, this is the moment. Right now, they have great deals on spring planting essentials, up to half off on select plants. And listeners to our show get 20% off their first purchase when using the code WWO at checkout. That's an additional 20% off. Better plants and better growing at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code WWO at checkout. FastGrowingTrees.com, code WWO. Now's the perfect time to plant. Let's grow together. Use WWO to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Go to growingfasttrees.com for details.
OG, you kicked it off at 13,800. And I guess there's good news if it's less than half on the way down to Doug's 2,600. You're good.
Yeah.
You feeling good?
I think I'm high, but it really just boils down to how great my back of the envelope math was. I have absolutely no concept of how many cups of coffee. See, I figured that they did 100 cups of coffee a day, and Paula thinks it's 40 cups an hour. So I don't know. It just seems like a lot of coffee, but maybe there's a lot of people. I don't know.
Yeah, Doug, you assumed way, way, way less than that. How come?
I don't know. I went with a number. I didn't want to overthink it. So I just intuitively.
It was in your soul.
You should have told all of us that 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you should have told us that, because you can see we're pretty damn good at overthinking it.
Yeah. And I think you see why my wife wanted to actually look at the numbers a little bit more when I was coming up with projections.
That's great. Doug's like, just retire. She's like, how much money we have? I don't know.
It's like 2,600.
2,600, yeah. Right. Paula, you've got the upside that OG doesn't feel confident about.
I do. Although, I mean, now that I'm thinking through my math, like 200, my real answer of 200,000 cups just sounds intuitively way like a lot for a minute. So I'm wondering if either my math was wrong or some assumptions in what I did was wrong.
One of those.
Well, let's see. Is Paula continuing to catch up? Is OG going to pull ahead? Is Doug going to help Mom pull up to OG and make this interesting? Doug, what do you got?
Hey there, stackers. I'm Fritter Lover and the guy always up for more glaze, Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. Krispy Kremes may be delicious and Starbucks may be better known for taking out a mortgage to afford your breakfast. It's Dunkin' Donuts we're talking about today. By the way, if you want to open your own freestanding location, the firm estimates it'll cost at least around $500,000 to get it up and rolling. Not that I can afford that paltry pittance. I think I'll stick with taste testing, thank you very much. Today, we're taste testing our panel's coffee trivia knowledge. According to Dunkin', how many cups of coffee do they serve every 60 seconds? The answer? The firm reports that they sell 60 cups every second, which translates to 3,600 cups of coffee every minute.
All right. Amazing.
And I love what he did. He's the one guy that didn't use a calculator. I just don't want to overthink it. Maybe there's a lesson there. Doug, you have a victory speech?
I'm honored to be here, and thank you.
That's so great. Well, then your wife probably appreciates the fact that you're very close at this stuff. So when you just felt it, like, that's good. Seriously, I think I want to begin there, though. Seriously, Doug, when you're taking your numbers and your spouse is taking her numbers, how did you guys come to an agreement? Because I'll tell you, when I was a financial planner, and OG, I'm sure you can confirm this, I could tell my spouse all day that something is going to be okay, but it truly is the story that's told by the math and understanding what the assumptions are, where they come from, and where we could mess it up that really makes Cheryl feel way better. Not Joe says, let's do it this way. How was it for the two of you?
It was very challenging. With trivia, I just went with my gut, came up with a number and said it, but I have an engineering background. So I had a bunch of spreadsheets and projections, and I was pretty comfortable with a lot of my assumptions. However, even though I'm analytical, my wife is even more analytical and even more, I guess, exact and precise with some of these projections. So at the end of the day, we butted heads a lot, and the truth was probably somewhere in the middle. But eventually, we hired an advisor to help us out with things we didn't think of. They see this kind of thing all the time. And we agreed, like, hey, we'll go with what the advisor is advising us with, and partially to act as an intermediary a little bit. And then the advisor could come with a little more direction, can work with us and make sure we're both happy with it. So we realized, like, we didn't really either we didn't have the tools or we weren't developing tools along the way to be able to make these decisions on our own, and we needed some help. And it's been game changing. It really gave my wife confidence to retire, quit her job, and feel really good about it. So you hear people say you can't go and like try to convince someone with spreadsheets necessarily. You have to meet them where they're at. Or, in our case, we kind of blended. I met her where she was at. She came in the middle, and we got an advisor to help us out.
Yeah, third-party verification. Paula, do you like that solution, third-party verification?
Yeah. I think especially for something so high stakes, it makes a ton of sense, because leaving your career is a huge, and I don't want to say totally irreversible, but hard to reverse decision. So whenever you're doing something that's high stakes and either irreversible or hard to reversible, or difficult reversible. Yeah.
Wow, journalism, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
The nation's best and brightest right here.
Of course, I don't know. I was an English major, and OG has spelled stuff for me on tons of occasions. So let's get into this piece, because I've got a great piece from Angela Guzman at a counseling website called Family Today. And it's when you and your spouse can't agree. And I think this is also good for other relationships. And it's funny because they talk about all the different places where people disagree. But the first thing on this list, OG, because sometimes you've been that advisor in that room, I think that the thing where they start here is kind of where Doug and his spouse met, which was acknowledge the problem. There's got to be a lot of times, OG, when you've been in the room where you see the problem, but the two of them kind of got the blinders on. Is how big is, and you think that's the first step, just getting it out in the open?
Well, I think in the context of what we're talking about in terms of communication around money, I don't necessarily think in terms of problems necessarily, although certainly you can have a money problem, right? If there's credit card debt, or if spending is higher than income should be, or something like that.
Well, our problem, I'll use myself as an example, OG. For Cheryl and I, the problem was what we talked about before the break. We did not look at it. That ended up being the problem. Was that, we need to look at our money together on a weekly basis, and we weren't looking at, we had to acknowledge that our problem was we just were asleep at the wheel.
Well, except I don't know that it's a problem in as much as it's a recognition of where that path leads. Money is very personal and very fluid, and there's no right answers. I think it's really funny when people have such firmly entrenched opinions about different things, even something as simple as like, you should always, anytime you hear those words, it just makes me think like, I gotta believe there's a circumstance where always isn't the case, right? Always max out your 401k. Yeah, really? Always? I don't know. Maybe there's some times you don't want to. My approach is very much rooted in, I need you, or in this case, you and Cheryl, to experience the path that you're on and recognize where that leads. And so I'm not going to say something like, oh my gosh, don't you guys see how this is a problem? And because nobody comes into a professional's office to get their head cracked open. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need me to beat you on top of the head. You are already here because you know something's going on that's a little off the rails potentially. So I might say something like, and just kind of lead you down that, like, well, how did you get to that spot? And how does that make you feel? And what happens if you don't do anything about this for a while? And maybe you figure out, geez, we got to start paying attention to this stuff, or we're walking down this path that's going to turn into complete chaos. Or maybe you don't. But I think acknowledging where you are, and maybe not that there's a problem per se, but just like having somebody as a guide. That's kind of how I think about the work that we do. The value proposition that we have as advisors is not that I'm way smarter than you. I mean, I just happen to have done this for a while, so I can rattle off stuff maybe a little bit quicker than the next person. But it's the fact that I've been up and down this path that you're trying to go down 1,000 times. And so I know where all the little bend points are and all the, alligator swamps. It's like, well, don't go that way. That's, I mean, you can, but let me tell you what happens. There's a bunch of alligators down there in the swamp. I don't think you want that unless you want to go alligator hunting, and that's cool too, but I'm not going with you. So if we can be on the same page of like, here's where this path goes, then it empowers you, or in this case, you and Cheryl, to now have the information you need to make the decision that's best for you.
But it's better if you don't cut to the chase, if you let us mentally work through the dominoes to get there ourselves.
I mean, here's the thing. If I say it, it's propaganda. If you say it, it's gospel.
Right.
Right. I mean, like if I just say, hey, you've got a problem. What if one of you doesn't think you do? What happens then? You just sit there and go,
Right.
Yeah, I have a problem. The hell I do.
Yeah.
If you try to talk to somebody that's been drinking a lot, right? Maybe you shouldn't drink as much. Screw you, buddy.
Yeah.
You just go, hey, well, what happens? What's going on with your liver?
I don't have a problem. You got to lighten up. Right.
Yeah. Quit being such a killjoy, man. We're just out here having fun.
Right. Paula, let's go to the first story you told with your parents. Because on that, who's got a problem? Your dad thinks you've got a problem. You think your dad's got a problem, right? Because he's not accepting the fact that this can work out. Okay, there can be happily ever after without going down his prescribed pathway.
Right.
How did the two of you accept?
Master's is minimum.
Yeah. How did the two of you accept that there was an issue? How did that get resolved?
Oh, I just disobeyed him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doug's wife just goes, I'm not retiring.
Yeah. No, it was a source of conflict for a long time. Like Nepal, where my parents come from and where I was born, is a country where entrepreneurs are shopkeepers who typically make very, very little. And the only way to make good money is by getting an advanced degree, typically in a STEM field, and then moving to one of the big 5 English-speaking countries, the US, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. And so that is the model that they know. When I was a little kid, nobody said, what do you want to be when you grow up? People said, are you going to be a doctor or an engineer? Because the model that they know is that the only way to have any type of stability and prosperity in life is you become either a doctor or an engineer.
That's the well-traveled pathway that has been successful time and time again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Those are the occupations for which you're most likely to qualify for a visa, because you're going to need to get an H-1B visa and ideally eventually a green card and then citizenship. And so my dad, when he was a kid, his dream was to be a physicist, but he's not going to get a visa as a theoretical physicist. He's going to get a visa as an engineer, right? Because America doesn't need theoretical physicists. They need engineers. So you optimize for what's going to get you a high-paying job and what's going to get you citizenship. And you optimize for that. And so that's the model that they knew. And it was I knew that there was nothing I could say or do that would open their minds to the notion that there are other possibilities.
Well, wait a minute. So then where did the acceptance come in, right? That he's finally accepting.
Proof was in the pudding. The proof was I showed him after I started making good money, I showed him my tax returns. And I was like, Dad, I'm the most successful person in this family. By a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Suck it, Trebek.
Yeah. But there was no convincing him prior to proving it, right? There is no convincing him in advance.
Yeah.
Prove it.
Here is the number. Nothing proves it. Like we were talking about, nothing works better than math.
Yeah.
And then to Doug's point, having a third party even verify the math and go, you know what, you can do this.
Yeah.
It's funny. I thought you were going to say, I'd show him the tax returns. I thought you were going to say, I showed him my Plutus Award. Well, once he saw that little thing that looks like I finished 3rd place in U8 soccer, he knew that I was for real. There's another point here, Doug, and I don't think this applies to you, but I think it does apply to a lot of our stackers. And I saw this a lot when I was an advisor, which was their number 2 on this list is accept and understand the idea of overfunctioning and underfunctioning. And the way they define this is you may prioritize something high and your spouse or your loved one, or heck, Paul, even the person on the date prioritizes it low. And I would find this a lot when we would talk about what are your goals. I'd have couples do their goals separately. And this was super important when people were in my office and they were getting ready to get married and they were talking about how are we going to work together. And I was that third party in the room. I'd have them write down their goals. And we did these great discussions because for Doug, it's number 1. And for Doug's soon to be spouse, it's number 5. Where did that begin? Did it begin with you guys pull out Vicky Robin and start reading out loud to each other? Or how would you suggest people kind of mend these fences around different priorities?
Well, I may not be the right person to ask for this as I'm not qualified, but I'll give advice here. One thing that we did after I read the 4-Hour Work Week, we went through the Dreamline exercise. For the people that aren't familiar, you write down your dreams and then you apply a timeline on it. we did that around the same time frame that I mentioned before, 2014. So around that time, I was listening to a lot of new podcasts and had all these different ideas of possibilities that we could do. And the Dreamline helped us align things. And you write down a lot of stuff. So we had a ton of things that overlapped. And we have done that every, I think, like 5 years or so, because
So
it turns out
she enjoys the process?
yeah. Well, not at first. She didn't enjoy it at first, but she went along with it and did see the value. The crazy thing, we ended up accomplishing like 90% of the things on there, even though we never looked at the list again. So we've done that every few years, and we keep like knocking more stuff off. So I would say, some sort of lightly formalized brainstorming activity, and hopefully you'll have, you and your partner or whoever you're doing the activity with, you'll have some stuff that you could align on and focus on those.
How do you handle that in your practice, OG? Because I'm sure that happens a lot.
Yeah, you were saying having people write down the things separately. I honestly, I don't know that we've ever done that. That's a great idea. I might steal that.
You're welcome.
Too bad you didn't trademark it. So you didn't say TM. Better luck next time. Obviously, a lot of our conversations are money related, right? It's about optimization and sometimes very tactical things like, should we do this specific thing that's going to affect our money? But I think a lot of our conversations with clients, especially after we get kind of the initial planning done, there's a lot of stuff we do up front, but through our review process, what I hope is the case is that it allows them the opportunity for all 364 days of the year that they're not talking to us to just live their life. And then the other 2 days where we have some time scheduled, these 6-month reviews, where they can say, okay, now we get to be focused on this for a period of time, for an hour and a half or whatever it is. And the two people are together, and just, it's a facilitation of a conversation, not so much a prescription of like, okay, you guys are off kilter. We need to do this. And it's much more like, all right, so our goal was to save $10,000 a month in your brokerage account. It looks like you hit 8, which is fantastic. What's going on with the other 2? And then that just by asking that question, you start figuring out what's going on. It's like, well, my mom got sick and we had to do some traveling. And then, on the heels of that, we had a big family trip planned, and that was over budget. And, and you just get and you can kind of see just through those conversations where those discussions need to go, having that one-on-one time, because you can tell how people are thinking. You can read the room when one person's sitting there with their arms folded, leaning back in the chair, angry, and the other person is like, you just go, so Paula, that, that obviously seems pretty frustrating to you. Like, I mean, to you say you kind of be straightforward and with your dating stuff, and thanks for sharing that. It's the same thing. Somebody needs to have that, be okay with going, I can kind of tell that this isn't landing right, Paula. Tell me what's going on. And you're like, well, I just don't understand why we have to always go to his mother's house for Christmas. You're like, okay, let's figure that out. You know what I mean? Like, this is the first time we've got to have that conversation because we have the facilitation to do it. To Doug's point, we're not marriage counselors or partnership counselors by any stretch of the imagination, but sometimes being able to facilitate that, third party discussion gets people to where they need to go.
Paula, I want to open this up just briefly to dating. Let's say you've got somebody that you're going down this path we've been talking about. They're not on the same page financially as you, but for whatever reason, there's this spark and they really light you up.
Super hot.
Are you far enough? Are you far enough along your life? You're like, I don't have time for spark. There's got to be spark plus all the financial considerations where we're on the same page. Or do you go, okay, maybe we work that out. We find common ground.
When you say not on the same page financially, do you mean their income and net worth is just significantly different from mine? Or do you mean that their habits are significantly different? Habits and goals?
I don't know. Tell me about how those would be different.
Okay. So my last relationship, he had immigrated to the US when he was in his early 40s. And prior to that, he was earning money in rupees. Essentially, all of the money that he made prior to his early 40s, when translated into US dollars, is basically nothing, right? So functionally, he's starting his net worth
very low
from zero.
Yeah.
Right. In his early 40s. He also has 2 kids, ages at the time they were 10 and 5. Now they're, I think, like 11 and 6 or something. That's usually how it works.
Hold on. Let me guess what they're going to be next. I got it. I'm really good at this.
Matt wasn't a math major, but
not even journalism, but investigative journalism there, Paula.
So he, because he was earning money in rupees, his net worth is basically zero. He's starting his career in the United States from scratch. So he's, from a US perspective, he's in the early stages of his career. He has a zero net worth. He has 2 kids.
Yeah.
In terms of his income and his net worth, we're in very, very, very different places. But in terms of his habits and lifestyle, he's fairly reasonable. Like there were a few minor things here and there that he would choose to spend money on that I wouldn't, like Wolverines tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
To bring it back to the blue and maize. That's how I learned that color is called maize.
Oh, so you weren't being, it truly was U of M.
Yeah, it truly was U of M, yeah.
Oh, I can tell you right now he's a loser. Just what the hell are you doing, Paula?
But, with the exception of a few little things like that here and there, great mindset, great habits.
So it's more about kind of for you, it's more about where the ball's headed.
Right.
Where the ball's headed.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Doug, for the two of you, that's really what you guys had to get your head around, that, you know what, we're both comfortable with this idea of early retirement. You had to move where the ball was headed and make it the same.
Yeah, exactly. And when thinking back to the goals, like we have common goals and we were kind of moving in the right direction, but like all the details it required a lot of negotiation, but yes, head to where the ball is going.
Yeah. And also OG, for you and Mrs. OG, of course, knowing both of you, she was stopping work no matter what. So it was you getting your head around it and the two of you coming together. I love this discussion. I will link to this piece from Family Today on our show notes page. Doug, thank you so much for this topic. This is a great topic. Obviously, we're not going to solve people that aren't on the same page at once. And also, to your point, we're not qualified. And I think there's often a time when it's the third party in the room is not even a financial planner. Sometimes it is a therapist. It's a person that, just needs to help you get your head around the differences that you have. And that can be very helpful. Let's find out about the brilliant work all of you are doing here in the middle of October. OG, after you watch my Spartans beat up on your Wolverines tomorrow, what are you doing after that the rest of this fine weekend?
I'm not entirely sure that I'm going to see much of that game. I've got my own little activity going on, so I'll catch the highlights. But more importantly than that, our big team retreat is next week. So we are leaving on a jet plane to take the team, not the Stacky Benjamins team, sadly, the other team, leaving on a jet plane to go hang out, do a little business planning, and just be thankful for our team and reward them, and a little bit of adult time, and just kind of lay low without kids for a minute and come back refreshed.
Doug, that sounds like some real PTO. You were talking PTO for Carl earlier. This sounds like real PTO. Going to the Caymans, that sucks.
Well,
how are you going to deal with all that beauty?
So for the IRS that's listening, this is a very important work trip. Very deductible, very required by the boss.
Very, very deductible.
Call it PTO per se. It's much more of a travel meals on the P&L, just in case anybody's listening.
Right. The paid is fine. The time off is not what you're doing. It's time on.
Yes. There's no
you're
time
working
off.
hard.
We're working every day. Yeah, we're working hard.
Working
Absolutely.
very, very, very hard. Yeah. We'll for guest of honor go last. Paula, what's going on at the Afford Anything podcast and community?
On the Afford Anything podcast, so we have a 3-episode series with Dr. Brad Klontz. He's a financial psychologist who talks about, back to what we were discussing earlier, mindset and habits around money. And so we booked this interview with him. We Airbnb'd a space and got a videographer in, and we shot a 6-hour interview. I put the therapist in the therapist's chair.
Wow.
And for 6 hours we talked. And so we chopped it up into 3 episodes. And so that airs at the end of October.
Dr. Brad can't talk as much as Michael Kitces can, but that guy can still bring 6 hours worth of good content.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because he's done so many media interviews that when you do a lot, you're trained in speaking in sound bites.
Yeah.
So I heard his answer to my very first question, and it was a soundbite answer. And in my head, I was like, buddy, we're here for 6 hours. We're going to go beyond the sound bites.
I'm going to knock you off that pedestal.
Yeah, yeah. And he caught on real fast. And then we went deep, because that's what we do on the Afford Anything podcast. We go really, really, really in depth. And so that's what we did with Dr. Klontz.
That's where finer podcasts like the Mile High Fi podcast are distributed.
Exactly.
Doug, man, it's about time we got you here. I'm so happy that you joined us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, what's happening at Mile High Fi?
Yeah, so I'm scrambling, trying to replace Carl at the mic. So I do have Pete, Mr. Money Mustache, hanging out in a couple days. I'm not sure the topic. We might either do like our favorite things from Die with Zero, or he's been retired coming up close to 20 years and may just do like a recap. And then I'm not sure. I think I have Sean Mullaney coming for like estate planning and some sexy topics like that.
I love that guy. We just had him on here again, and what a great guy.
So smart. Yeah, he knows his stuff, and I don't know any of those details, so he'll be the perfect expert to have in here.
When I first met Sean Mullaney, it was at Camp Fi. And I think I introduced myself as what Sean Mullaney would look like if he's 10 years older and let himself go. And that's kind of who I am. So that's great. And that's all at the Mile High Fi podcast, where finer podcasts are found. Well, that's going to do it for today. Thanks to everybody on YouTube hanging out with us. Thanks to everybody on X for hanging out. We make these live. We're usually here about 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays most of the time. But if you're in our Facebook group, The Basement, you'll get a little ping that we're going live. And then also, if you belong to our newsletter, the 201, stackingbenjamins.com/201. Doug, you've got it from here, man. What should we have learned on this episode?
So what's stacked up on our to-do list for today? First, take some advice from my brother by another mother, Doug, who said this amazing thing.
There's always going to be some friction when you're talking about something so important like finances. And I think it's important to focus on the common ground. And for us, really the most effective thing was getting that third party to verify our assumptions. And we went in with an open mind and realized that we needed a little help. It's fine to go and ask for help when you need it.
Oh, Doug, we're both so brilliant, aren't we? But I'll also acknowledge that, Paula said this other amazing thing that, I was totally listening to, but what was that again, Paula?
When you go on a first date with a father of two, ask him if he'd be willing to move to Kathmandu.
But the big lesson? Don't ask Joe's mom if she likes apple fritters. She'll just tell you to stop frittering your time away and start washing dishes. God, what a taskmaster, that woman. Thanks to Doug Cunnington for joining us today. Joe, it's about time we feature this amazing Doug on the show. Maybe the second best Doug ever. You'll find Doug at the Mile High Fi podcast, wherever you're listening to us right now. We'll also include links in our show notes at stackingbenjamins.com. Thanks to Paula Pant for hanging out with us today. You'll find her fabulous podcast, Afford Anything, wherever you listen to finer podcasts. And finally, thanks also to OG for joining us today. Looking for good financial planning help? Head to stackingbenjamins.com/OG for his calendar. This show is the property of SB Podcasts, LLC, copyright 2024, and is created by Joe Salsihai. Joe gets help from a few of our neighborhood friends. You'll find out about our awesome team at stackingbenjamins.com, along with the show notes and how you can find us on YouTube and all the usual social media spots. Come say hello. Oh yeah, and before I go, not only should you not take advice from these nerds, don't take advice from people you don't know. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any financial decisions, speak with a real financial advisor. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and we'll see you next time back here at the Stacking Benjamin Show.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.